and just phenomenal leader, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Good morning, Kate. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I know where to start, but then my brain goes, but there's 5 other things you want to ask her.
We can meander.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's a good thing. I love that word. That's one of my favorite words to use in general in life. But I will start off by asking you the question that is truly my concern for you, because I care, and that is how you are doing. I know you've been busy as heck and fighting the fight every day for the folks who need you the most. But how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Oh, thanks. I'm doing all right. You know, I keep reminding myself it is an honor to be able to represent immigrant families and to have a skill that is useful in times like these. I know exactly how I can help, and that is a good thing. So, but you know, it's massively frustrating to be in these cases. We do a lot of detained cases, and so to deal with these families of people who have been plucked off the streets or from the courtrooms, and to not be able to give them clear answers on what's going to happen is really hard. And, you know, to be able to be in the fight is also of value. So I'm okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So you said something that I want to make sure that I understand, and maybe our listeners know, but if you could put a little bit of more context on when you said detained cases. What does that mean?
Well, in the world of immigration, there's employment cases where you help, you know, companies and HR people petition for their employees. And then there's family-based cases and humanitarian cases and removal defense. And detained work is the sub-niche within immigration where you are representing the people who have been put in detention. They're in immigration jail, and the work is getting them out. And it's definitely, I would say, the hardest of all of the practice areas, certainly emotionally, and also from a, you know, what you're up against perspective. So we have expanded our detained representation at my law firm out of obvious necessity. And as I do, you know, check-ins on our cases with the clients, I spoke at a rally over the weekend about ICE detentions, and we had 9 clients who were picked up by law enforcement, you know, sheriffs or state troopers. And I called the families of each of those clients to see if anybody wanted to come to the rally or provide a statement. And so just hearing from each of them the stories and how they're doing is, I mean, it's so upsetting, so egregious. I mean, people who have been here for decades, you know, 30 years, 20 years, no criminal history, businesses, families, children who are crying for them every night. No real clear end in sight for them either. That's the other thing, is that, you know, some of these people under new policy are not eligible for release on bond. So we're appealing to, you know, the humanity and the kindness of ICE, of which there is not much these days. And so then you were saying to these families, okay, well, we're going to wait for them to, you know, process our request for release. And if that doesn't go the way we want it, then we're going to have to sue them in federal court. And, you know, it's just the solutions that we have at hand in our, you know, basket of tricks are diminishing. And that part is really hard and frustrating.
And that's why I you know, respectfully and carefully from a caring perspective, I wanted to ask you the question about how you are doing, because I know that even with that skill set, useful skill set, as you put it, and that care that you have for what's right for so many people that are caught in this situation, it takes a lot out of you. So we genuinely care, and we, you know, if every now and again you feel that wind hit you, I told you, with Windy City would be sending you energy. And so that's what that is, even though it's a Texas wind that you're getting. But, you know, Kate, I one of the things that I try to do with our guests is keep a smile on your face. And I want to, you know, applaud you and your firm for the hard work. And I know our listeners all over the country feel the same way. I do kind of have a question in terms of around the country. Do you have colleagues, or do you have other attorneys that, for lack of better words, there is a way of sharing the load with things that they're dealing with? I mean, do you have attorneys that you know and work with here in Chicago or in Los Angeles or, you know, in Florida or wherever else that you guys can kind of share information, share success stories, and or talk about things that might be coming their way to give them a little bit of a heads up in terms of dealing with some of those things?
Oh, absolutely. The immigration bar, you know, is what we would say, is a very collegial, very fun bar. And of course, we are at war and we are at battle. And one of the neat things about being an immigration lawyer is that we're all on the same side of the fight. It's always been that way. So if you compare it to maybe like a, you know, litigator or a family law attorney, and you get a bunch of divorce attorneys together, they've all been opposing counsel on different cases. Whereas you get a bunch of immigration lawyers together and we're always on the same side of the fight against DHS. So it's a very collegial bar. And, you know, of course, we have the American Immigration Lawyers Association and all the functions and the CLE seminars, but then there's a lot of Facebook groups. And, you know, a lot of our work these days is, oh my gosh, okay, new policy, new memo, new regulation, new case. What are we doing about this, guys? What are we thinking about this? How are we communicating with our clients? And there's a conversation daily within the immigration bar about how we are responding and we're supporting each other. So I'm really glad to be an immigration lawyer for that reason. I love my immigration law colleagues. And yeah, we stick together for sure.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And I've been, you know, pushing everybody to stay connected and stay, you know, in touch with each other, check in on people that you know, make sure that folks that are fighting a fight of a particular nature that, you know, they get a phone call from you to support. And so that's one of the reasons I just wanted to check with you on that in terms of what your colleagues are doing and how you guys are rallying. So talking about legislation for a second. But I want to come back to something earlier that you mentioned in terms of the agents themselves. How are they? Well, I don't know how much your interactions are with agents, but when you've had interactions with agents, do you get a sense that they don't want to be in this role? Excuse me, from the way in which they're having to enforce some of the legislation and some of the rules, or do you get any sense that they're following orders? I was talking, and the reason for this question, Kate, so you understand, I was talking earlier about the National Guard being deployed here in Chicago, and we're on the threshold of that. And I was just saying to everybody, stand down, stay cool, and not engage, not provoke. Do you get any sense that the ICE agents they're down with this, or they're like, you know, I'm just following orders, or is there a mixture of that?
They don't show their humanity in our interactions with them. You would never know what they think or feel. They just give, you know, every communication with them is monitored. And I think that they're under a lot of scrutiny and oversight. I know that there have been reports of low morale within the agency. And obviously they're having difficulty keeping people and recruiting people because they're, you know, literally recruiting teenagers and, you know, paying big sign-on bonuses and all of that. So we know that morale is low within the agency, but our interactions with them are just very, you know, just here's the answer, here's the response. No sort of discussion about what they think about it. And, you know, I would say, I think anybody, this might be a bold statement, but I think any ICE officer that has stayed within the agency is making a mistake. I think that anybody, especially these, you know, officers who are going out and doing these arrests on the streets and in the courthouses, anybody who is continuing to do that, I think, is up for prosecution when all of this is over, because they are violating people's constitutional rights and people really are being tortured inside these facilities. We've heard the reports of the way that people are treated. Women are having to go to the bathroom in front of the men. There's not enough medical care, food, water. I mean, at this rally I went to on Saturday, I met a woman who was detained for a traffic infraction 12 days postpartum after a C-section. And she had an infection. She was not able to urinate, and they put her on the top bunk. And this detention center, she couldn't even climb into the bed, and her baby wasn't taking formula at home. I mean, it's nightmarish. And any ICE agent who is still in the agency is complicit in this torture of human beings. And what I want to say to the ICE agents who are in there and thinking, you know, I need a job, I have to support my family, I don't know what else to do, I would say quit your job. And really all you would have to do is do one video, contact one news agency, do one video and say, I was an ICE agent, I was not okay with what was happening, and now I need a job. And I think job offers would come out of the woodwork for somebody like that. You know, it's not enough to say, I need to support my family and therefore I'm going to detain and torture people. Sorry, that's not a good enough excuse.
Support your family while destroying others. I wrote that down as you were describing that, Kate. I'm Richard Chu. We are talking with immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, and I always start when I introduce you and mention your name. I think great human being first, attorney, like immigration attorney second, because for you to take on this work and to do what you're doing, there's a depth of character that you have. And I want to ask you this question. It's a personal question, but I think I hope it's important for those who are listening and understanding how to get their courage. And so, Kate, where does it come from? You talked about the useful skill set. I like that wording. But where does it come from? Where does this care? Where does this part of you come from that allows you to do this work and do it in a manner that has been heroic?
Well, it's been about 20 years since I found immigration, and I went to the University of Texas Law School in Austin, and the UT has clinical programs where you can practice being a lawyer and have clients in different practice areas. And I speak and spoke Spanish, and I wanted to use my language. So I signed up for the immigration clinic. I mean, that was sort of the extent of my thinking at that point. And my first assignment back then was to go to a detention center. George Bush was the president. And I was going to the first detention center for immigrant families and doing an intake with a family there. And they were Iraqi. It was a mom, a dad, and a little baby. And they were all in prison uniforms, including the baby. She had this little onesie on, and her mom asked me if I would take her baby with me and take care of her until they could get out. And I remember going home that night just in shock. I mean, I was just so tearful about the reality of our policies and our treatment of immigrants, when the way we presented ourselves as a nation to the world, as a nation of immigrants and prosperity and hope and a beacon, was not matching the policies on the inside. And working with that family and learning about immigration, it was clear to me, like, this is it. This is the fight of my life, and I will do this for the rest of my career gladly. And obviously things have only gotten darker since then. And so the fight only intensifies. And I really do feel like it is such an honor for me to be able to represent these families, because I think it takes so much fortitude and bravery for someone to go through something in their home country, whether it's danger or just wanting a better life, and to literally pack everything up and go to this new place where you don't necessarily speak the language, you don't know the culture. I mean, everything is brand new, just because you want to do something better for yourself and your children. And I have so much respect for that. And I think all of us should. That somebody who does something like that is the kind of person that we want in this country. And so I only, my resolve only strengthens on a daily basis for this work.
That's a powerful story. And I appreciate you being willing to share that part. I'm sure a lot of people that heard your description of that probably took a pause to say, wow, that the courage of the families. Yeah. But also the courage of you and the work that you do. So we talk about policy, and we talk about, as you mentioned a moment ago, how our policy doesn't represent on the ground actions. And I agree with you 1,000%. And that's what so many people are struggling with. But I know you've been on top of this one, and that's the district judge, Ms. Cobb, who said that this Trump effort to expand fast-track deportations is essentially illegal. I mean, help us through that. I think a lot of people in her blocking this effort to expand fast-track deportations, a lot of people don't understand what that, both sides of that means, the fast track and then her now essentially blocking this.
Yeah, I was just reading through the order. It's 48 pages. It's not super long, but it's one of these. I just love reading smart judges' orders. It's like scratching an itch.
Kate, when you read one of those and you're like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm like highlighting, writing things down. Like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking. It's so satisfying, but I mean, it's needed. This order is so necessary. This is a really, really important order because it really smacks down the Trump administration's efforts to disappear people and send them away without due process. You know, we talk about due process. What does that mean? It means people get an opportunity to defend their life, their liberty, and their property under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. That's what due process is. And what the Trump administration has been doing since January, but really ramped up in May, is picking people up in the interior of the country in these raids, but also at the courthouses and their check-ins, and then detaining them and deporting them swiftly without due process, without a hearing, without an attorney, without an appeal, without paperwork, without a pause. And most of these people are eligible to stay. The vast majority of them are actually eligible to stay, but there's nobody overseeing it. And so what Judge Cobb was saying is that the way that they've expanded, it's called expedited removal, from the border to the interior of the country is unlawful and overreaching. And that once someone is inside this country, they are afforded more due process than they've been getting. And so what it really tells the Trump administration is you can't do that anymore. You can't just pluck people off the streets or in the courthouses and send them away to another country. And I can tell you, I can think of so many families already that I know that could have used this order several months ago. I think of my client, Carmen, who was arrested at the courthouse in front of her U.S. citizen husband and has 6 U.S. citizen daughters. And she's in Mexico now. Her whole family relocated to Mexico because of what happened to them. But she was in detention for 2 months, separated from her daughters. And I went to their house multiple times and I watched their family unravel without Carmen there. I mean, the youngest daughter was 7. And just the way that they suffered over those 2 months. And finally, at the end, despite the fact that all of them were U.S. citizens, they said, we don't want this country anymore. We're out of here. We don't ever want to come back. This country is not for us. And they left. And Carmen had, an interior design business. Her husband, Eduardo, is a very hardworking construction guy. He does house painting and roofing and all of that. And we've lost them. We've lost them and other good people like them because of this policy. So Judge Cobb's order is really, really important. And frankly, I wish it would have come sooner. It's hard for me to think about the people who already got removed before this order came down.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking in that regard and how time wasn't on their side, unfortunately, in terms of this. So as we go forward, hopefully that's going to be there to protect more people. But I do have this thing that's lurking in my brain to ask you. So is this a block or an order that can be up for appeal? Because it's a district court. So can it go to what would be next? A federal? It's a federal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's next in opposition? I guess let me just cut to the chase. That the administration can do to say, oh, no, we're going to appeal this because we're right in our expedited removal. Is that something that could happen, or is this one kind of signed, sealed, and delivered?
No, it's not signed, sealed, and delivered. You're right. There is an appellate process. So, and it goes, lower federal court judge like Cobb, then it goes to the Circuit Court of Appeals, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. And what Cobb has issued is a stay, which is sort of a temporary order blocking a policy while the litigation is pending. And so you can have the stay or the injunction appealed while the case is still at the lower federal court. And probably that will occur. We'll see if the Trump administration appeals. I would imagine that they would. I mean, there's some what they call jurisdiction stripping language in the statute on expedited removal, where it says, the review within the federal court system of expedited removal is very limited. And so I would imagine that the Trump administration would pull that language and appeal. And so, who knows? Everything, I think, at the Supreme Court is a real crapshoot these days. So we will have to be watching this one carefully to see how it goes. And I am on social media, and I do really daily videos with updates and breakdowns of what things mean, and a weekly live video talking about the news of the week. So if anybody's interested in following, along and finding out how I'm interpreting everything, I invite you guys to follow my social media.
Yeah, I'm thank you for saying that, because I had a couple of the videos and I thought, okay, it's too long. It'll be Kate's video versus me and Kate talking this morning, but not too long in a negative way. So let me put the big star on that. It's so informative. So I will share this with you guys, and Kate just gave me the baton. If you are, or if you know someone, 1 or 2 degrees of separation that is caught up in this mess, please have them go to Kate's website, have them Google, or you can send it to them if you feel that there's someone that needs information on how to navigate. Kate is one of the best resources in the country for helping folks navigate through this. And to her point, with her post, there's lots of good nuggets there to help you sort of better inform yourself and those that you care about at this time. Kate, like I said at the beginning, we I had so many things that go through my mind, and I have my list of things I want to talk with you about. But at the end of the day, I guess meandering is okay, and we still are able to get some good information out to folks. What do you want to leave our listeners with today on this segment as we wrap up this morning?
Well, since you are all based in Chicago and you've got Trump breathing down your necks, let me say, I think that the threat is very real, that they will probably send in, military forces or law enforcement, and they will try to do some big, ugly, splashy raids and arrests because they are bullies and they will retaliate against sanctuary jurisdictions. I think that is real. And I think that people who are immigrants should stay safe, know your rights, have your documents ready, have a relationship with an attorney, have an emergency contact, someone you can call if you get detained, have a plan for the children. Like, do your planning and preparing in earnest, really do that. And for the folks who are not, worried about immigration for themselves, if you're a U.S. citizen living in Chicago, reach out to an immigrant friend that you have and ask them what you can do to support them. Maybe they need you to bring them dinner or groceries, or just come hang out with them in their house because they're not leaving. But that's the way that you can support. If you're safe to move about the streets of Chicago, use your freedom to support an immigrant who's probably going to be sequestered in their house for the next little bit.
Great information and great advice from a great woman that's doing the work of many. So, Kate, thanks for being with us again this morning. We're propping you up, and that little breeze you felt was the Windy City sending you some love and some support, and frankly, the rest of the nation sending you that love and support that you need to you and your fellow attorneys there at your firm. So thanks for being with us, Kate. Thanks as always for the hard work that you're doing. Look forward to having you back again and just chatting with the folks who need to hear your voice and hear your support and and expertise, the useful skill, as you called it.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a joy to talk to you.
All right, Kate. Have a great day, and we'll talk with you soon. And you stay safe as well, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, the fact that she does this work, and that she found her she found what she should be doing, and that she does it with the aplomb that she does and the strength that she does is frankly amazing. So those of you who listen to this show anywhere in the country, however you follow us, reach out to Kate, send her some love. If you can, in whatever way you can support. All you got to do is go to their website, and you can, find ways that you can get involved, in, whether it be indirectly or directly. She is one that's fighting, and let me be clear. She's not just fighting for those who are immigrants struggling with the immigration situation. She's fighting for everybody who has a friend, a coworker. The list goes on. She's fighting for all of us in this space. These are the American heroes that don't wear capes. She wears those great golden colored outfits, and so does her team. But this is someone that you want to support, and you want to find out how you can be a part of the things that she's doing to make things better for citizens of the United States and people that are on this inside of our borders. So there you go. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney, one of the people that we support and believe in. So I hope you guys can do the same.